Hi, welcome back to BB Kids, and today's nature art project we are going to be making a natural hedgehog. So here's one we made earlier. Harold the hedgehog says hello. Now, in order to make a hedgehog of your own, and you can call it Henrietta, Harold, whatever you like, you're going to need some materials. So here's what we have laid out on our table today. Laid out on our table today, we have a number of different resources. We have our scissors, we have some secateurs, we have a range of different twigs. These were just some that I collected the other day when I went on a nature walk to collect different things. We have a bit of moss, we got a bit of charcoal, some berries, a bit of gravel, and this here is actually natural clay. So this is the earth, essentially. And in order to work well with clay or soil, you also need to have a bit of water on hand to help with the binding and making everything stick together properly. Now, if you're looking at any of this thinking, oh, I'm not sure I have this, just see what you do have. Perhaps you can diversify. You could use plasticine or clay if you have that at hand, or you could make some salt dough, play dough up. You could use beads to embellish instead, and use your imaginations. There's lots of things you can do even if you don't have these particular natural resources available to you at this time. So we'll begin by taking our clay. As you can see, this is natural clay, and if I move that up, you'll see that there are all still natural materials inside this. Now, you're going to break a piece off. And as we got this a few days ago, this is a little bit dry. It's still okay though to use. So you may, at this point, if you're finding a similar issue with your clay, just need to dip your fingers in water and just give it a little bit, not too much, otherwise it might get too slimy, but just a little bit of something just to get the clay moving again. I can say at this point, if you don't already know, that a great way to keep your clay moist is to keep it wrapped up normally into a plastic bag. And if you have a wet or damp sponge or cloth or something you can put in with it, it just helps provide a little bit of moisture so that it doesn't dry out too quickly. So that's something for you to consider if you are using clay or natural clay. So to begin with, we're just going to make that into a nice ball, which you can roll in your hands. There we go. To create the nice rounded back area of our hedgehog. You're going to take a pinchy finger and thumb, and you are just going to gently pinch towards the front, and you can then flatten down on the top, another pinch move and another pinch move. And as you can see, we're starting to get a ridge created there, so that we have a facial section, which will be for our hedgehog, and we also have a larger back section, which is the back area of our hedgehog. So you're just going to use those pinchy fingers, and if needs be, you can keep dipping in and out of some water just to create a nice smooth surface, if that's something that you would like to have. But again, you know, if you're doing this with younger children, that is probably not something that's high on their list. And they may not be all that bothered, but older children, that's a wonderful skill to learn about. And that's where you create a little bit of slip, which is essentially, slip is essentially clay mixed with water, sort of like a little bit of a solution that you can then smooth down and onto your clay surface. Okay. So this is another one of our wonderful activities that can be done by all age groups. So really teeny tiny ones can do this, and it's a much more free-form activity, or you can do this with older children, and it can be something that can take more time. You can really look into how the anatomy, I suppose, of the hedgehog and what they really look like from different angles, and, you know, learn a little bit about them while you go. So we obviously have a nose area now, 2 indents, as you can see I was just creating there whilst I was talking, for the eyes And then we still have a larger ridge, which is where a lot of our spikes are going to be going. Now, as you saw from my walk earlier in the week, I'd picked some berries, which have now started to dry. And I'm going to use those today for my eyes. You could, of course, use whatever it is that you have available. Maybe it's raisins, nuts, something in the food cupboard, or perhaps if you are artistic, there is something that you could use, like beads or something like that. And I'm just going to place my little eyes in and just squeeze my ridge a little bit more around that section there to create the ridge a little wider. Okay. And I'm going to choose today a little piece of gravel, which I'm going to place, I think, for its nose. A little piece of gravel that we had. Now, if you are hoping for these things to stay in their places rather, then you're going to need to make sure that they are well embedded into the clay so that they don't just fall out when the clay becomes dry. I'm also thinking, looking at that, I might just turn my berries around a little bit so that they don't look quite so oblong but more round. Here we go. Sorry, there we go. Let's turn this around for you. There we go. Now, in order to create the spikes, which are in the back, I'm simply using some very small bits of twig where I've taken the leaves off. I also have sections of plant root here, and there's also various different types of twig. Whatever you have, that's fine. Again, if you were struggling for something like that, you could also consider using maybe some bendy wires or straws or anything of that nature. And because this one is so particularly thin this time, I'm actually able just to run up and down the stick here with the scissors and cut myself a number of different pieces, different lengths, really simply. And then all I'm going to do is to start sticking them into the clay and positioning them, thinking about the direction that I want them all to be going in. I'm going to create my first row. There we go. And this is how it begins. Now, if you need any more clay, you'll need to create a little bit of a slip solution. So that would mean taking a bit of clay, a little bit of water, creating that, placing that onto your hedgehog. So I turn this around, you'll see what I'm doing. Onto your hedgehog, a little bit more water, and that will create a nice smooth surface. If you're wanting to add a larger piece on, so you would then usually use, in fact I'm going to use my stick to create a little bit of a section, it broke, a little bit of a surface on the back of the clay, like so. And then using another section of clay, which is still too dry, I also need to make this a bit wetter, I can actually just fudge the pieces together. Okay, so I can just push and create a larger section running in the background there, as you can see how that, so you can build. It's quite simple to build with the mud. It's also, it's a really durable resource. So there we go. So you can see how I've just made its back section a little bit larger, but that's just how it goes. I'm just going to wash those fingers before I pick up the next one. So also secateurs can be very useful to have. You obviously take off your safety lock, holding them this way up. Again, think about adult child situation and if you need to prepare the resource for them. Although, as I say, my 4-year-old daughter is very able to use these as cutters with a little bit of help. Sometimes this section here, the push down motion, is a little bit too difficult for her. So perhaps they could line it up and then you check you're both okay. And then you can help them clamp down in order to cut. And always remember, as soon as you put them down, to put, oh, she says, put on the safety lock so that they aren't then going to be opening. And again, you can just build up the layers of your sticks and to give you your spikes for your hedgehog. We'll do hedgehog and put that one in the other way. Oh, there we go. And there really is no right or wrong pattern for you to create your hedgehog with. Now, having taught you now the real basics of the technique, and I think you can probably get a sense of what it is that I'm doing. I'm not going to keep going until it's completed. You have seen our other miniature one that we made earlier. So these are the stages that we go through in order to create them. And so I would let you crack on with the activity yourselves, which is what this is all about. So thank you for visiting us and with our little hedgehogs here. And we hope you have fun making them. You could also consider taking them outside with you to the garden or any outdoor environment. And you could also consider habitat and where you might want to place them and the kinds of things that they would consider as a mammal themselves. So take care. Nice to see you. Bye.